Thank you so very much,
Chris.
I know there are a lot of folks here from New Jersey. The words you don't want to hear on the radio is a tractor trailer is overturned on the parkway. How many of us have experienced that before? But in any event, I do apologize for being late, but I'm very, very, very pleased to be here at this important event and have an opportunity to welcome you. I was very intrigued by how long it took for people to raise their hands at the last one, so I'm going to try to throw a few hand grenades out there in my 2 minutes here of introduction to see whether we can elevate the level of discourse. And thank you, Alan. That was a very interesting and I think compelling presentation. So here's my big problem as Commissioner of Education in the state is New Jersey is one of the top performing states in the nation on the NAEP. And it is that, and you're going, why is that a problem? And it is that because of our incredible educators, our marvelous administrators, and the enormous successes which often don't get talked about nearly enough. So we are number 3 or number 4. You got to hate Massachusetts; they seem to always do well. But we are always really doing really spectacularly by that standard. But here's the other side of the coin, and here's my dilemma: to find the right balance between celebration, which can easily lead to complacency, or urgency and impatience. Because seething beneath the surface here are some very, very unfortunate, some would say shameful realities, as we have a couple hundred schools in the state where children are just not learning. I mean, they're performing at levels in the single digits, 10, 20, 30% reading on level. We have 40,000 students who can't read at the third grade level. And by the way, 20,000 of those are in schools considerably above the state mean in poverty. So I listen to things like collaboration and consensus, and I go, these are really important values, but they're not the point. The point is, can we graduate every child from high school, regardless of his or her birth circumstances, ready to be launched into adulthood, prepared to succeed in college and career? That's the point. I happen to agree that collaboration is a means to that end. I happen to believe that democratic values are an important facet of that, but again, these are means to the end. So what we have to do is ask ourselves to this question, shall we be disruptive? Well, here's the answer, okay? Are we content with the way it is today? And how many here believe that if what we are all set out to do was to do exactly the same thing we've been doing for the last 20 years, only to do it a little bit better, that will make a material difference in the outcome of these thousands, tens of thousands of kids who are falling off the face of the earth, never to graduate or never to go on and be. And by the way, another example of complacency, we have a test called the HESPA, the High School Proficiency Exam, which passes for our high school exit examination. Well, here's a very interesting statistic. 90% of the kids who go to Bergen County Community College need a year of remediation. They've got that degree. There is no vertical alignment whatsoever between college and career readiness and what it takes to graduate from high school. So while we can brag, it's about to change, by the way, but while we can brag one of the highest high school graduation rates in the country, it does beg the question, what does that really mean? When our employers are going, we got lots of jobs, we just don't have anyone who's good enough to fill them. So this is a very challenging thing, and I would suggest that the right perspective to take into this is the perspective of two great men. One is Einstein, who said that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is a definition of insanity. And the other is Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who happens to be one of my personal heroes, who, when he came into office at the outset of, once the Depression was well underway, but when it was really at its nadir, said, here's what we're going to do. We are going to try new and different things, and if they don't work, we're going to throw them out, and then we're going to try new and different things until we find something that does work. I would suggest that the spirit of this conference and the spirit of the work has to embody those basic fundamental perspectives. And I think there are really only 4 things that matter in school reform. 4 things. And everything in the end falls into one of these columns. And everything else is noise because they don't really tell you, when I was a high school teacher for 4 years, you know, the big question I had was, okay, I go to conferences, I listen, I go, yeah, but what do I do differently tomorrow? I don't quite get it, right? We got these new standards, which we're going to hear about, which, by the way, I deeply believe in. What do I do differently tomorrow if I'm an administrator or I'm a teacher? I get the books, I get the lectures. What do I do differently tomorrow? So I think there are 4 big bets that we need to make as a state to have a step change in our outcome. The first is in the realm of academics. And by academics, I go, what do I mean by that? We have to have the right standards. Our standards need to be aligned to college and career readiness. They need to be vertical. And you can't have standards without assessments. For all the banging away we have on tests, which are deeply flawed and need to be replaced, and very, very, very awkward way for the school reform movement to have come out of the box in the 1990s and beyond because of the relatively poor quality of the tests and all the collateral issues they create. You can't have standards without tests, full stop. When I taught AP US History and Government, I taught a lot of other things too, but when I taught that, that's what you have, right? You say, here's the body of knowledge and the set of skills you should have by the time you finish your year, and then we're going to test whether you have it. There's nothing inherently evil about tests. They just have to be done right, and you can't teach test-taking skills as opposed to the test. So high academic standards, which pivots to the implementation of the Common Core standards, which if we do this right, and there's serious doubt about that, will be the most revolutionary event in public education. All, you know, vouchers and charters and all that stuff takes all the oxygen out of the air. The standards movement in the 1990s was the revolution, and if we get it right this time, it is going to completely change everything for reasons I'm sure the panel will talk about. So I bet on high academic standards. Second, I bet on talent, and this is the one where you get into shooting wars very quickly. But let's be absolutely clear about this. If you don't have effective teachers, and notice I didn't say quality teachers. I said if you don't have effective teachers in the front of the classroom, all this ivory tower stuff we're banging away at makes absolutely no difference. It is absolutely the dividing line between success and failure. So the way that's often interpreted is, oh, I see, the state is going to go out in some kind of, you know, witch hunt and try to, you know, get rid of ineffective teachers. Actually, that's not the case at all. I believe that talent involves the right recruiting strategies, responsible evaluation, and we do far more to assist particularly our impoverished kids by turning average teachers into good teachers and good teachers into great teachers than we do to go after, the, quote, the bottom X%, whatever that is. Sure, you have to have that as part of a system, but this is all about building the link between data and professional development and individual needs of teachers and helping them get better. So talent and academics. The third is accountability and performance. Let's face it, guys. If it isn't measured, it isn't done, and it is very, very important not to be obsessive about it, but to bathe teachers, schools, and districts in information about how they're doing. I'll give you a really good example. We're putting out a report very soon that basically identifies kids as early as the 3rd grade as to whether they're at risk of not graduating or whether they're at risk of, or whether they're on track to go to college. We know what our students look like when they go to and complete college. We can extrapolate backwards at the classes they've taken, the performance they've done. So this will give educators the opportunity to say, not I need to do better, but I need to do better with Johnny. And I need to figure out the tutoring strategy, the family engagement strategy, whatever, to get Johnny across the line at the end of the 12th grade. So performance and accountability, you're going to see a revolution in NJ Smart and so on. And the last is innovation. So I have to tell you my perspective about technology. We are in the Pleistocene era in technology in schools today. Technology has meant draw down some E-rate dollars by hook or by crook and then put a smart board in the classroom and a whole bunch of computers in the back and said, see, we got our T1 in, aren't we cool? Which means that the disruptive kids are doing Google searches in the back of the classroom and people have forgotten how to do research at home. It's been totally a sham, but there is a absolute revolution underway, both in the private sector and in academia, that technology is going to change the frame of public education. So innovation, we should be investing in innovation, finding innovation, supporting schools in developing. So that's essentially the policy. These four basic levers of change are what we've organized our work around. So anyway, I welcome you to the conference. I know we have very many other things to talk about, and I thank you so much. Thank you, Jane. Yeah.
Great, go ahead, have a seat. I'm Katherine Gertz. I'm the reporter at EdWeek that covers common standards and assessments. So welcome, and I'm really glad we had some references to the Common Core, because if you're not already in it, you'll be in it soon. So, and these folks have lots of interesting stuff to share about that. So I want to go ahead and get started. Let me tell you a little bit of context about why we're here, even before I introduce my guests. This is such a big deal. You already know about it, but everywhere, teachers and educators I talk to are looking for guidance on what to do about the Common Core. A lot of them sort of have the idea of what it is. Some of them haven't even really read it. Some of them are in it over their heads. It's all over the place. So we've written a lot about this in the paper. We've written a lot about this in the blog that I co-write with my fellow reporter, Eric Roebelin. But Common Core 24/7 is where we're at, and a lot of districts and states are feeling the same. But the problem is that teachers need to uncover what the standards mean for them and what they mean for students in their classrooms. So that's really the only way they're going to come up with instructional strategies that can boost student achievement. As education leaders, you're probably already in the thick of it, and as I said, if you're not, you will be soon. Because these new expectations, when you curl up with them and read them, they require fundamental changes about how things are done in schools and classrooms. Last August, I moderated a webinar with leaders from Hillsborough County, Florida, one of whom we have here today, and Cleveland, who are at the leading edge of working on this stuff. They know firsthand how crucial it is for everyone to understand these standards, first of all, and they recognize that it's no easy task to get from understanding them to putting them into practice. One of the tensions in the work right now, though, is that there are relatively few resources for people to use. One of the biggest streams of questions that I got on that webinar was people literally practically screaming into the computer as they wrote a question, "Where are resources I could use? Help me." So we ended up writing more about that because it was such a clear need. A lot of groups, including the folks who wrote the standards, people like the assessment consortia, the states in the consortia that are working on tests, they're all working on stuff. Model instructional units, rubrics about text complexity, but a lot of it isn't done yet. And the stuff that's done, a lot of folks don't know where it lives. They can't find it. So there's a lot of yearning and searching out there. Obviously, the publishers have jumped in, publishers large and small, with stuff that they claim is aligned to the standards. Whether it is, how well it is, we're all figuring that out. So with all this activity going on, states and districts are really trying to get their feet down and figure out what to do. Slowly and steadily, they're assembling stuff, trainings, resources, model units, all sorts of stuff. And they're trying things out. Some places aren't doing anything at all yet. And we see this from research that places like the Center on Education Policy has done, where half the school districts they survey really aren't moving ahead. And there's some interesting reasons why. So I hope that we can hit some of those reasons here. So today, Education Week will take this hour to bring you our first live event session devoted to exploring to how everyone is bringing the Common Core to life in states, schools, and districts. So with that, let me introduce who we've got up here. To my left, Mark Baumgartner is the Director of Professional Issues for the Cleveland Teachers Union. He's a 20-year teacher of 7th grade English at Luis Munoz Marin School. Mark is helping lead an unusually close collaboration between the union and the school district to put the common standards into place. Also, Cleveland is one of a half dozen or so districts that are working in partnership with the Council of Great City Schools and a Gates Foundation grant to pilot Common Core work. Mary Ellen Elia is the superintendent of the Hillsborough County Public Schools, the 8th biggest district in the country with 193,000 students. That's in Tampa, Florida. Under her leadership, since 2005, this district has emerged as a hub for innovative approaches to K-12 learning and the Common Core in particular. Among other things, Hillsborough is one of 3 deep dive districts that are working closely with the Aspen Institute on Common Core issues. Sasheen Phillips is the Senior Executive Director of the Ohio Department of Education's Center for Curriculum and Assessment. Sasheen has provided leadership in standards, curriculum, and assessment for Ohio in a variety of positions in the department during the last decade. Finally, on the far end, Pam Stewart is the Chancellor of K-12 Public Schools in Florida. Her 30-year career in education has included stints as an elementary and high school principal, as a Deputy Superintendent for Academic Services in the St. Johns County School District, and as the state's Deputy Chancellor for Educator Quality. Welcome, everyone, and thank you very much for coming to talk about such interesting stuff. I did want to start by asking, in response to the materials that we put out, that you all responded to, let's look just briefly and take a few minutes for each of you to dive just a little bit into the key areas everyone's interested in hearing about. How are you helping educators take that deep dive into the standards? So we're talking about PD. Maybe you could very concretely go over what you're doing with PD, and also resources. You know, what are you doing as states and districts to create actual instructional resources for your folks? So let's just take a few minutes each if we could.
Okay, in Cleveland, we started with an unpacking of the standards, and we're doing a grade band implementation. We're starting with K-2 last year, and this year 3 to 5, and then 6 to 12. So what we did is we took the K-2 standards, and we had our master teachers in Cleveland come and unpack the standards and develop some PD for the K-2 teachers last spring to come together and just become aware of what these standards are. One of the 2 sessions was resource alignment, and the second one was formative assessment. How are you going to know the students know the standards have been mastered? So there were 2 6-hour sessions last spring. Then our K-2 teachers rewrote their pacing guide so that it incorporated the Common Core standards in K-2, and that was in June. This year, with the implementation of the Common Core in the K-2 classrooms, we're bringing these K-2 teachers together in cohorts of 20 schools each. We have about 80 K-8 schools, and they come in cohorts, and we have them 4 times a year, 6 hours, 4 different times, and we're really doing deep dives on what does rigor mean in the classroom? What resources can we use? How do we know that kids are learning this, and how do we know that we've mastered or are doing rigor for the kids? So we're doing a PD, and we have 3 of those 4 sessions are done already this year.
So in that PD, you're not just sitting around chatting, right? You're actually making lessons.
Right, making lessons, and the person who moderates is the same master teacher with the same group of teachers 4 different times a year. So it really becomes a professional learning community where you pick up where you left off last time, and you just you become a resource for each other too.
Thanks.
In Hillsborough, we've really been working on this for almost 2 years. We put in place in a collaboration with the Dana Center and the Aspen Institute a literacy design collaborative. There are several districts in the country working on that, and we actually rewrote curriculum for 1 course in middle school to start this work 2 years ago, so that we could look at how teachers actually needed to look differently at this. This isn't regular standard work, right? This isn't like, so now we're bringing it up to the 21st century in a history course. It's not that. And so I think the important thing for teachers is to understand that it not only is content, but it's pedagogy. And it is engaging not so much what they do, but what their students are doing. And that is a big shift in people's mindset. So in Hillsborough, because we're a large district, we're using the leaders within the content areas and at the schools almost to become trainers for their schools and for the contents that they're involved with. So starting that way to organize it and make sure that everyone who is a reading coach at an elementary school or a math coach or a content supervisor for social studies in middle or high or science in middle and high, they're very involved in it, they understand it, and then we move out from there. This summer, we have intensive training going on. One of the things that Hillsborough does that I think has helped us to become able to deal with a lot of innovation and do things differently is we rely very heavily on the professional teachers that we have all through our district. And they come together in teams to work on curriculum development and actually to guide the way that we're going to implement. So I think, like Mark, as a union person, it's very important to have teachers working as part of the developers of this program. And if they're not, then it can easily move into something that is just the same old, right? And it isn't. Common Core, the way we have to get to the end result of students that are ready to walk out and not have to go into remediation and be the leaders in colleges and universities. And I will say this, and force the curriculum at colleges and universities to be relevant for the 21st century. I think they have to be ready themselves to do that. We'll never get them there unless our teachers really internalize the differences in it. So we're spending a lot of time on what that message is for everyone to get, and then really structuring how they get to an understanding of it in the schools.
Thank you.
At the state level in Ohio, we truly understand the paradigm shift that's taking place with the standards and recognizing that the standards are focusing more on depth of learning than breadth of learning. So as we looked at providing support in the transition, we wanted to look at it in stages so that we could truly work with educators to deepen and build their capacity and knowledge of the standards prior to just going in and doing and making changes. So to support that effort, we've created what we call targeted professional development sessions, and they're held regionally across the state. And we have them facilitated by what we call trained regional content facilitators. And these are content experts in the state of Ohio. And they come together, and the sessions are by content area. And we have adopted 4 standards, the Common Core state standards, as well as state revised standards in social studies and science. And the teachers come together and collaborate and dig deep into the standards so that they truly have an understanding. And when we say dig deep, we don't mean looking at it from a surface standpoint, but really recognizing and seeing where are the shifts, what things have changed by grade level, what goes into greater depth, what has moved and what has remained the same. So that sometimes when you're looking at the information, some people may say, oh, we do that already. But if you go in and you engage in collaboration and conversation with your colleagues, then you gain that deeper understanding. But to support that effort, we also created in Ohio what we call model curricula. And these are model curricula units that have been developed not only by content area, but they've also been developed by grade level and grade band. So for every single topic, that's what we call a kind of a cluster for English language arts, and every single cluster for mathematics, we have a model curricula unit, which says here are the deeper understandings around the concepts and skills within a particular grade level. And that's called a content elaboration. It also goes a step further and says, here's what students needed to know as it relates to this concept and skill prior to coming to this grade, and here's what they will need to know as they move forward. We included instructional strategies and resources so that teachers will have support as they are engaging in curriculum revision and instructional design. And we've also incorporated a section that we call Strategies for Diverse Learners, which provides some support for English language learners, students with disabilities, and students identified as gifted. And then we have a section for science and social studies called Expectations for Learning. And this provides suggested ways on how you can evaluate where students are in terms of their trajectory of learning as it relates to the standards. We will flesh that section out for mathematics and ELA in the coming year, but we held off because we are a part of the assessment consortia at the time, and we were members of both assessment consortia. Now we're a member of the PART assessment consortia as a governing state, so that will allow us to inform our work. This document was designed as a phase 1 so educators could dig deeper, as we stated, before going into the do, because that's what we see as one of the major shifts that's occurred. The instructional strategies and resources section of the model curricula will continue to be populated yearly. It's a fluid document, and we're not saying that it has everything, and it's our stage one, particularly in our strategies for diverse learners. But we're creating opportunities for educators to contribute to that work. And we have educators who've been actively involved in the process. And then we've also created other resources such as comparative analysis documents, which demonstrate by grade level, here's the content that is new to this particular grade level, here's the content that is consistent and remain the same but may go deeper, and then here's content or skills that no longer appear at that grade level but where they may appear now.
Before we move on to Pam, I had a quick question for you, Sasheen, on the units. I mean, we're talking about more than 770 model units that Ohio has done. When you put those together collectively by topic or grade level, would that be a complete year-long curriculum?
No, well, and let me specify this to say, the 774 model curricular units that we have, they span across all content areas and all grade levels. And the way that we've designed our model curricula is that this is considered to truly be a resource tool for educators. It's not a curricula that we would say a state board should go and adopt and stamp. More so, it is a guide for educators as they are engaging in curricular decisions and instructional decisions. As we stated, we'll continue to populate and also incorporate things like lessons and units. But one of our biggest lessons learned that we had when we adopted standards in 2001 was when we immediately went towards the stage of developing units and lessons, we moved educators immediately to the do, without thinking deeply about what it is that you are looking at in terms of creating high quality instruction. So with our new model curricula units, they're focusing on what teachers and students should know, and then our next phase is focusing on the do.
Thank you.
Florida has a very unique situation in that we have taken on two very large projects in a very short period of time. Through the Student Success Act passed in the 11th legislative session, we have completely revamped our teacher evaluation process. And this comes right at the same time that we are looking at adopting the Common Core standards. So it is a bit the good news and bad news all rolled into one event. Because as you heard Commissioner Cerf mention, this is a revolutionary change. And if we don't look at things in that manner, we're going to miss the mark. We are not going to achieve where we need to be. The other thing is, and it is as Commissioner Cerf pointed out, the teacher quality is the biggest piece, particularly as we look at Common Core standards. It is a complete shift in the manner in which teachers have taught. And if we don't think of it in that way, again, we will not achieve our goals. So I think in Florida, because we are looking at a new teacher evaluation model, districts have the opportunity to have adopted the state model or some variation thereof. Hillsborough County adopted a variation of that they have a great deal of success with. And there isn't huge differences that cause problems throughout the state. But in fact, the different models complement one another. So as we look at Florida, there are roughly 2.7 million students in the state of Florida. We have 75 school districts, which I think makes our work somewhat more manageable than those states that have 400 districts that they are trying to corral. We have, as Katherine has already pointed out, we're all over the map with regard to where we are in implementing Common Core. We have Hillsborough County that started their work in that area 2 years ago. And we have other districts that are just now beginning to realize that there's going to be a change in our standards moving forward. So from the state level, as we looked at that, we came to the realization that while we have what we believe to be a pretty good timeline with the implementation of Common Core, having started this year with kindergarten, since that's the first cohort that will not be taking our state-developed test, but will be taking the PARCC. We start with that group, that's full implementation of Common Core, with the other grade levels, 1 through 12, implementing the literacy standards, the text complexity, and the quality of materials in 1 through 12, starting with this year. In 13-14, Florida will be looking at a blended model where we will continue with our next generation standards and implementing the Common Core in grades 4 through 12. So we have a very unique situation, and I quickly realized that if we don't come to some way of supporting districts and helping them that don't have the advantage that Hillsborough County has had, our districts are going to be floundering and on their own trying to find what they need to do. We've done professional development starting last May in pockets. We've done wherever we've been asked to come in and do training in Common Core and text complexity. So our staff has done a heroic job of getting into more than half of the districts to whatever audience those districts have brought together, whether it was every classroom teacher or if it was just district reading coaches, district content area folks. We've gone in and done that training. There has been training available, complete statewide, for those that chose to participate, so that we gave an awareness in every district of how things were going to look differently. But again, that was not going to reach every single school in the state of Florida. So this summer, very similar to what was described in Ohio, we are doing regional training, 3.5-day training sessions that will be focused on, again, our Common Core standards and how those work together with the new teacher evaluation. How will we, since we now are doing many more observations with a very focused intent when we go into the classroom, how will we not only ensure that teachers are teaching well, but that what they're teaching is what, in fact, we intend for them to teach? So every school is invited, highly encouraged, to bring a team of 4 folks, and the districts are also invited to bring a team of 4. We are, through Race to the Top funds, going to be funding that training for the individuals to have the travel to come to those sites to receive the training. And when they walk out of there, those district leadership teams or those school leadership teams will walk out with a plan of how they will roll out Common Core in their schools and ensure that Common Core is being taught within all of their classrooms.
Thank you.
Just let me add, there's a couple other things that are part of the Florida scene that I think it's important to know about. A year ago, we instituted a FCAT 2.0. So we had the FCAT, so now 9 years later we put the new test in. It is very different, and it responds to the new generation Sunshine State standards, which were implemented right before that test. So we had, for teachers, and I think this is an important thing, we hear this from our teachers all the time, you keep adding things. How do they fit? If they fit, tell us how, because we're not seeing that. So I think it's a really important part of the conversation where you have to say, this is how this fits with new generation standards, and this is where we're going with the new assessments. But if you have, on top of a new teacher evaluation, new standards the year before, a new FCAT, and we've changed all the cut scores for the new FCAT, as well as changing the formulas for grading in Florida, which is a very, I would say, focused accountability state. And so all of those things are part of the world the teacher's living in as we're implementing Common Core. It makes it a more difficult challenge to get teachers to think about what it is they have to do to change, because they've been changing pretty much their world.
I wanted to pick up on something we talked about earlier, Mary Ellen, when it talks about when we talk about PD and how this is not just cutting and pasting standards and moving them up and down a grade.
Mm-hmm.
This is something entirely different.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if you could share with the audience some of what you found when you work with the Danielson framework and all the teacher evaluation work you're doing. You found that there's some particular areas of weakness that your teachers have that you're planning to address vis-a-vis the standards.
So one of the things that's really helped us a lot is we're in our 2nd year of the implementation of a new evaluation. And we didn't do a pilot. So we did the entire district with our teachers. And it's the Danielson rubric developed by a very active group of teachers who've been with us for 3 years now working on this implementation. One of the things that we found was that Domain 3, that deals with instruction, drives teachers. It's the area that we most had developing in our evaluation for teachers. Developing is the category that teachers are saying, okay, what do I need to do to get better? And so it's driving teachers to, what do I need to do related to questioning, teacher and student involvement, understanding and activities and those things that are going on in the classroom that show that in fact the students have a level of understanding what you taught. All those things ended up being where all of our teachers need to go to get better PD, because they all want to get better. I mean, it's a developing evaluation and we want to make those things available. So it fits very well with the work that we're doing on Common Core, because our teachers are clamoring now to know what they need to do better in their classroom related specifically to instruction. So it's a very good connection for us and takes away some of the noise of other things so that they can get there.
You know, Mark, you've talked a little bit about the certain difficulties you feel that are really most urgently need addressing among your teachers, how to get them to make some key shifts in response to these standards. Would you chat a little about that?
So one of the biggest things that we found, and obviously it's probably in Hillsborough too, is the rigor. You know, how do we shift teachers to make sure that there is rigor in the classroom? And that's what the Common Core is all about, this deeper dive into fewer standards, but deeper. So what we did, besides the 4 PD sessions that we bring each teacher to, we have about 80 K-8 schools, and in each school we have identified a teacher who is our Common Core advocate. And we bring them together for extra training after school, and they're both an expert resource in the building for teachers implementing the Common Core, and they lead some PD sessions at the school level, so during faculty meetings where we have early release days. So each school, there is a Common Core advocate that is the expert that teachers can go to and say, you know, does this look right? You know, as I'm doing lesson planning, because we are also instituting the Danielson model this year for teacher evaluation. So that Danielson model, stage 3, does lead that PD that we're talking about. And so when teachers are doing lesson plans, questioning or does this look right? And they have this resource in the building of this Common Core advocate.
Yeah, thank you. You know, from the state's point of view, we sort of glazed a little bit over this communications challenge we have. And I'm wondering if maybe the state folks can speak a little bit to how do you get that message out so widely to all the different stakeholder groups? What kind of a challenge does that represent? And do you have any little aha moments you might be able to share with folks about ways that you've found particularly effective, or maybe something you're still struggling with that maybe they could anticipate?
Well, I can say that from Ohio, one of the things that we feel that we benefit most from is we have a strong regional educational system. And so we have what we call regional educational service centers. And ODE, Ohio Department of Education, has built fostered a partnership with our regional educational service representatives to provide training and support to the field and the type of outreach that is needed. In addition, providing and support around implementing the Common Core and transitioning to a college and career ready work system is truly a primary focus of our State Board of Education. And so we have taken on measures where we have created outreach sessions, and we have representatives from the department as well as representatives from our State Board of Education who are going out and providing outreach sessions to the field on awareness and understanding of what the Common Core state standards mean, what does it mean to transition to next generation assessments, and how we're providing support along the way. And then we use our electronic communications as much as possible to communicate updates and information. We have a Facebook site that is located on our website so that educators can provide feedback and input from that standpoint. The model curricula that I spoke about earlier, we have incorporated information in a link and sent out communications so that educators could not only provide us feedback on the model curricula, but they could also share and submit ideas and information so that this can be a collaborative process. Our educators played an influential role in the first phase of our model curricula, and we still want them to maintain and to be involved. And then through Achieve, there is a Future Ready project around creating outreach efforts related to the Common Core state standards. And recently in February, we hosted a meeting was hosted by the Fordham Foundation for leaders in Ohio to come together and to receive this understanding so that we can try to hit all facets of the audiences that need to receive this information and have a concrete understanding. And also in February, we created a webinar, and we worked in collaboration with our partners from the Park Consortia and hosted a webinar for educators across the state to receive an understanding about what does it mean to be a governing member in a Park Consortia, where are we going with our next generation assessments, and we're going to continue to do that. But with all of that, we know that we try to provide as much support to the field, but we have over 600 districts within Ohio. And so we're trying to do everything we possibly can to meet the needs of all of our districts, but to provide the type of outreach and support. So we try to provide as many surveys and to work through our regional representatives to receive that information. Race to the Top has also been a huge asset to our state, because we have over 400 districts in Ohio who are part of Race to the Top. We've built a large community. And so this community has created a situation where we have ongoing dialogue and conversation and a strong understanding and awareness of the transition as it relates to the standards and what's expected. We recently had our standard visit from the U.S. Department of Education for our Race to the Top, and they went out and engaged in some communications with some of the districts in the field. And one of the things that they brought back, which was positive, is they said that educators in the field had an understanding of the resources and support that we were providing as a state. But one of the biggest things they stated was that the educators said they understood that transitioning to the new Common Core state standards is truly vital and important to ensuring our students are college and career ready. But they see that this is not an easy task. It's not simply a cut and paste. That it is going to take time and that it's challenging, but it's worth it because the expectations that are being communicated within the standards are such that our students will be able to exit upon graduation ready for college or career of choice.
Thank you.
I would say that in the state of Florida, we have several ways of communicating. We do have the social media or social networking that we do on our website. We have information and links on our website that are available. We also do 3 communications that are sent out, pushed out to those individuals in the education world. One that goes to everyone, one that goes to teachers, one that goes to principals. And we include information there. We also have monthly calls. We hold monthly calls with our superintendents. We have a Just Read Florida office that holds monthly update calls with the district contacts and curriculum calls that are held monthly to get dialogue and help people through this process. What I think we also are beginning, in fact, this Wednesday is our first communication rollout, which is called Education Works. Key people within the department will be visiting districts, again, pulling together the audience that the district selects. And we have our talking points that we're going to share with the districts and provide opportunity for question and answer at the conclusion of those. So we've scheduled those. They're in just about every single district throughout the state as we move through April and May. Where I think we are just beginning our work and would be very interested in hearing what others are doing. We've been talking about Common Core in the educational world for a while. What I don't think we've done well is communicate that out to parents and to our business community. And I think that that's something that Florida is just beginning the planning stages. with a education-related group that is outside of the State Department of Education to help us through that process. But I think that's a key point, so that our stakeholders that we maybe haven't included along the way get included on what this shift is going to look like, what may initially occur, and what they can see as the long-term effect by our implementing Common Core.
And if I can follow up on that, that is truly a valuable piece, as you stated, because as we're engaging in this transition, we not only want our educators to have a true understanding of what this means, but also our non-educators as well. And as communicated, one of the things that we have that's a benefit is through our Future Ready project that we're involved in. We have representatives from education and non-education entities and organizations at the table engaging in discussion and collaboration. And one of the other benefits was that through one of the sessions that we had, we opened the doors so that our policy leaders could come to the table and gain and have that understanding. And by doing that, it allows a common shared understanding of the importance around college and career readiness, but also around the Common Core state standards. So we see a benefit of sharing this message to a variety of different stakeholders so that we can work collaboratively together, because we recognize that when our students, as we stated, are going to be ready upon graduation, they're going to be working with all facets and not just entering the post-secondary arena.
Real early on, when we started implementing our Common Core, we thought that it was so important to have the communication piece down. And so the chief academic officer, he would send out daily updates to the principals. And anytime anything had to do with Common Core, I was copied on it, and then I would send it out to our chapter chairs in each building. So the principal and the chapter chair are hearing the same message. And anytime I would send something out to all the chapter chairs around Common Core, I would CC him on it so that he could also send it to the principal. So we wanted to make sure that this network of communication to the leaders in the building, both the principal and the chapter chair, so that everybody's on the same page. And it's been very effective, you know, ongoing for the past year.
Thank you. Well, I have a million more questions. I could sit up here all day and talk to you guys, but it's time to take some questions from you guys. And I would actually love to kick it off by throwing one out to you, because I know there's so many district folks here. And one of the things that I've come across in doing my reporting on Common Core is that we wrote about a particular study that came out that surveyed districts, surveyed states separately, surveyed districts, and maybe half of the districts were really moving ahead to take key steps to implement the Common Core. And one of the reasons they stated was that they were uncertain how to proceed because they didn't feel they were getting really good signals from their state. Either the state wasn't doing very much that they were aware of, or they were getting conflicting information. They felt a little hamstrung, it seemed. So I'm wondering if anyone's willing to stand up and say, from districts, how are you guys feeling in terms of communication from your state? Do you feel like you know what you're supposed to be doing? You're getting the information you need? And maybe we can just go from there. Come on, you can do it. Thank you. There's mic runners in the room. And why don't you let us know who you are and who you're with?
Hi, I'm Terry Russo. I'm a teacher on assignment from Orange, New Jersey. And one of the first ways that we started rolling it out was teachers were given the option this year when they were aligning their lesson plans to the New Jersey core curriculum content standards was to also try to align them to the Common Core. And so what you found was there was like this curiosity that was developed, you know, that was, even if people didn't really know about it, although the state has been broadcasting it for a while, but it was more like a ground level movement within our district, and then teachers started talking within Common Planning time about how they were unpacking it and saying, like, we don't even do this, you know, we don't do text complexity, we don't compare to primary documents and have kids, you know, argue about them. We only have them persuade. And then there was a conversation about what is the difference between the two. That happened a lot more in the ELA section, I would say, than in math, because in math, we already use the two programs that we have on the element, well, 3 through 8 were everyday math and connected math, and they're already more aligned with Common Core. So that was just like, are we going to bump the books down, you know, what are we going to do in 5th grade with all these changes? You know, where are we going to get the resources? So that conversation was a little bit different than trying to align what we're currently doing in ELA.
So you said,
but with the state, I mean, it's been broadcast and broadcast and broadcast. So I think within individual districts, it depended whether or not the administrators were giving that information down to the building and school levels.
So it can get lost somewhere. Anybody else? How are you feeling about getting signals and guidance from your states? Not everybody's boss is in the room. Okay, all right. Let's take, what other questions do you have? What's on your minds for these folks? They're doing a lot of good work up here. They have tons of info. There's a question over there.
Good morning. My name is John Jenkins. I'm the Regional Director of School Leaders Network located in New York. I know that one of the fastest ways to challenge a new initiative is to have the word mandate attached to it. And in many places, there's been a lot of information about the Common Core, but very little inspiration about the Common Core. So I'm wondering, what are some of the steps you took to create a real compelling need for shift in practice around the Common Core, so that people took it on as not just a mandate, but a mission for students?
Interesting. Anybody want to take a stab?
Well, I would say part of the communications initially, we did sessions for a lot of different groups. Our department chairs in our schools and our reading coaches or math coaches, and for key groups that were together talking about curriculum, about why the Common Core, and looking at text complexity and the differences in what we used to do or still are doing now, but what we're moving to with Common Core. We talked about how important it was for students to be critical readers and critical thinkers and be able to work together in groups. And if you look at some of the studies that have been done about what the workplace is demanding, it's that kind of a person. And so we made those connections in our initial, you know, kind of overview of the Common Core. And we've had very specific conversations, different varying levels of complexity for those groups, starting with that initial, you know, what is the Common Core and why are we doing this? And it really has helped us a lot.
2 years ago, when we first started doing the Common Core work, the first thing that we did is we had 4 Common Core symposia, we called them, and it was just an open call to buildings, teachers and principals. Some buildings brought teams, some individual teachers just came, or principals, and we had about 1,000, maybe 1,200 spread over the 4 different symposia. And it was, here are the Common Core. Look at them, you know, here's what they are, and it was just an awareness session. We also had the tables, because it was in a big room like this, we also had the tables fill out where is the district ready and not ready as far as professional development, resource alignment, and it was district, school, and classroom. So there were all different lenses looking at this, at the Common Core, and we really used the feedback from those symposia to just drive our professional development and drive where we were going to go when we implement the Common Core. So.
And in Ohio, when our state board adopted the Common Core state standards and our state revised standards in 2010, and so we host regional awareness sessions in the fall and the spring. But this year, what has helped as well is, and let me put into context that with our 600 plus districts that we have in Ohio, we are also a local control state. So our districts are not necessarily required to utilize our standards. They are required, of course, to take the assessments. But how we were able to provide this approach is that we have taken on a campaign around college and career readiness, meaning start ready, graduate ready, so that we can show how underneath this umbrella, we're not just talking about ensuring that our students are performing well at the elementary, middle school, and high school level, but that we are ensuring that we're preparing our students in the area of early learning so that our students can begin school ready to succeed and to move down their trajectory of learning to be successful. Through our campaigning, we provided information about where we were with the Common Core state standards, but we also included some information as to if we look at where our students are in terms of our performance on our state level assessments, and then in comparison as to how our students are performing on NAEP, let's show you where we are now. And our students weren't performing as well on the NAEP as they are on our state assessments. But also when we think about the level of rigor within the standards and how that's going to influence the assessments, and we see where our students are performing now on our state level assessments, we're able to try to show some predictive information as to where our students might actually fall in terms of readiness and in terms of proficiency when they take the next generation of assessments. So we looked at it from that standpoint and also connected our work with higher education, because it doesn't just stop at the K-12 arena. And we demonstrated to the field that currently here's where our students are around leaving high school upon graduation and having to enter post-secondary and still requiring remedial coursework. Our students that are going to Ohio universities upon graduation are approximately around 40% are still going to require remediation. And to see that that could potentially increase when we move to our new assessments that are going to be aligned to the Common Core. So we need to work now and to be diligent in order to provide the type of support, resources, and tools necessary so that our students are ready when we transition to the new standards or the new assessments. But the one benefit is previously when we created our standards, we created our 2001 standards, and then no more than a year or two later, we instituted our achievement test, our Ohio graduation test and OAA. This time, it's fast approaching, but we're able to demonstrate that the new assessments will first be administered in 2014 and 2015. This is providing some time to truly make that transition to the new standards and to provide our students with the opportunities to learn so that they can show that they're successful when our 2014 and 2015 assessments arise.
And yep, I see a question over there. Nice big hand.
Hi, my name is Jim Lerman. I work at Kane University here in New Jersey. It's incredible to hear all the activity that each of your organizations has been involved in over the last year or two. I'm wondering what kind of structural changes have been put into place or in the pipeline as a result of all the planning, all the discussion, all the activity. Structural changes, I mean restructuring of your particular offices, restructuring, and by that I mean staff in schools and in school districts, and also in restructuring of curriculum. We've heard a lot of talk today about how it's not just cutting and pasting. Mm-hmm. What courses have changed? What sequences of courses have changed? What things happening in those courses can you point at that have happened in the last year or two?
Keeping in mind it's all a work in progress here. Mm-hmm. Who wants to take a whack? Go ahead, Marielle.
Go ahead. From Ohio's perspective, in terms of restructuring our agency, we created a situation where within our agency we are operating by two divisions. And within my division, it's called the Division of Learning. And we have two centers, the Center for Curriculum and Assessment and the Center for the Teaching Profession. And we now have been joined together underneath one division so that we could work more collaboratively together, because we recognize that what we're providing in terms of support around our standards and our assessments truly has a direct relationship and connection to the high quality performance and the Center for the Teaching Profession and the performance of our teachers and our administrators. So this allows the type of collaboration that we deem that's necessary in order for us to function. In addition, we have an Ohio Department of Education, but we also have an Ohio Board of Regents that supports higher education institutions. And physically, in the coming months, the Ohio Board of Regents will be housed within our building. So we will become stronger partners, so to speak, because we will be working together and living together underneath one house. This allows more continuity and relationships and more consistency around the work that we're doing across K-12 and higher education.
I think that's a really good question. You know, there's often kind of this perception that whether it's the state departments or school districts, things come to us, we don't change, but we expect lots of changes in the schools and the classrooms. Mm-hmm. And I think that until school districts, and I can speak for a district, school districts change the way that they organize themselves, breaking down the silos that exist, you can't really be as helpful to a school as you would like, or helpful to teachers within any school as you'd like. So we've done some very important work in that area. I will tell you, you know, opportunities come in strange ways. Having to cut $180 million out of our budget over the last 4 years provides enormous opportunities, doesn't it? And so we've done a whole lot of restructuring. I can name a few. The way that we intersect on our new teacher evaluation, we changed all of our professional development and hooked it to instruction. So it's very, very closely tied. We've also changed in our instructional model, tying it to the administrative department, our support for principals at the school, because it's extremely clear as we go through the work we're doing with teacher evaluation and a brand new principal evaluation that also takes into account teacher or student performance and teacher performance and teacher retention and all the things that the literature says is really important for leaders to do. We've got to help and support those leaders in different ways. So we've reorganized that. All of the back house kind of things in our school district have been reorganized so many times, and anytime anyone leaves, that job is like absorbed, right? So we've done all of our cuts and our reorganizations to support these agendas in the context of our financial situation to not affect classrooms, and in fact put more support in. We spent out of the education, the ERA funds that we received, a large majority of our ERA funds went to teacher training, because we knew what we were facing in changing evaluations, and we needed to have teachers understand the importance of them becoming constant learners so that they could do better. All of that plays well in, for Hillsborough, the context of we've got lots of changes, but we know how to change because we've done it. And we've supported teachers in those ways. But I would absolutely agree with you. And I think, and to throw it back, I think it's very important. You're from a university or from a college in the system. I think it's very important for people to come to school districts ready to teach. And when I get teachers, I have teachers coming into a district that is 57.8% free and reduced lunch. And I don't have teachers who have had experiences in urban schools who don't understand the differences of working with an inclusion of an exceptional ed kid, inclusion of ELL in our classrooms. And I would challenge that all of us have work to do. I'm not pointing fingers, I'm just saying we all have a lot of work to do. And Common Core is something that I would suggest to you is not really on the page of universities and colleges of education. And it has to be, because our teachers, in 2 years, their kids are going to face the exams that are going to be relevant to that. And in Florida, they won't graduate if they don't do well. So this is high stakes, and we're all on that page.
And if I could just add, from the state level in Florida, any of you that have done any work with departments of education know that they are very siloed. And I was at the department for 5 years. I left and went and did some district work for 2 years and came back, and was very amazed at how the silos really had broken down. We now hold meetings where our bureaus work together on this very work. And I think that's been a huge shift. And if I can just piggyback on something that Mary Ellen said, in the state of Florida, we create our own teacher certification subject area exams. And those are shifting so that we are, in fact, moving to the Common Core. And I think that is going to push our colleges of education to change so that they are producing individuals who are coming out more ready for what's in the classroom.
Thanks. Questions? We just have a few minutes. I see a question here and here. The mic is coming. Don't worry.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Best. I'm a director of curriculum and instruction in a district in New Jersey. And I go to a lot of these information sessions about the Common Core. New Jersey State has many of them. When I go, I rarely see teachers there. It's usually administrators like me who go to these. And then at the district level, where these administrators who are lots and lots of info on the Common Core are kind of left to make it happen. And in order to make it happen, we need time with our teachers. So my question is, what are states doing in terms of creating that time for professional development? We talk a lot about quality professional development, and where is that time coming from in states? Are school districts in other states thinking about reducing contact time with students for 1 week in their policies so that in the next 2 years we actually have time to create institutes on the Common Core and on new teacher evaluation with our teachers? Because they're not hearing all this because they don't have the time out of the classroom. So I'd like to know how people are addressing that in other states.
In Cleveland, what we do a couple of things. We do the professional development 4 times a year, where we send substitutes into these buildings, and we bring all the kindergarten teachers from these 20 buildings together for an all-day training session. And then the next day it'll be from 20 other schools, all the kindergarten teachers. So we have this bevy of subs that go out and kind of tackle these cohort buildings, and we bring these teachers together 4 times a year, so they get 24 hours of deep professional development led by peers, master teachers within Cleveland. We also, once a month, we have early release days where the kids go home 2 hours early, and we piggyback our faculty meeting on those days, so teachers in buildings have 3 hours of professional development. Part of that time is also around the Common Core. We have our K-2 teachers with the Common Core advocate doing that kind of work, while 3 to 8 teachers do other things, and next year it'll be 3 through 5 will also be doing it. So there's a lot of supports in place where we get teachers together in cohorts and professional learning communities, and then within the building level using an expert in the building as a Common Core advocate. So there are times where the teachers do this kind of training and work around the Common Core.
We've done a lot of work. As I said earlier, we've actually done a train-the-trainer model. And so in school sites, you're right, administrators, supervisors of the curriculum areas are the ones that are really getting the real core of this. And so they're the ones that are training our trainers who will be in our schools. But besides that, you have 1 day a month. We have an early release day once a week. Now that's kind of an unusual thing. We're one of the later ones in Florida to go to that. But it has been very helpful. One of the things that we did was take some time out of the teacher day for planning, and that was one way that we were able to meet some of our funding issues. So we put in a Monday afternoon as an early release day, and that's been part of moving off and giving time to the teachers who will then be trained by their colleagues.
I do think that's key. The model I talked about is essentially training leaders, although we are going to train schools to do that at teams of 4. So we're hopeful that that is going to get the work out more as well. But as Mary Ellen talked about, the district that I worked in also had once a week early release, which provided the opportunity. Most recently, it was with regard to the new teacher evaluation, which is very tied to changing the way we are instructing, is very tied to the new Common Core. As that district moves forward, I know that that's one of the things that they will be spending their early release days doing as well.
In Ohio, as Mark communicated, we have many districts that are taking the opportunity to provide they're utilizing the early release days and utilizing once-a-month opportunities for their educators to receive professional development. At the state level, we're trying to also support that effort by, for example, the targeted professional development sessions that I mentioned earlier, to create situations where they're being hosted in the evenings so that educators can possibly attend during that time period, which might make it easier for them to attend instead of taking time out of their school day. In addition, We also have created webinars so that you can participate in the session, but they're also housed on our ODE website, so that districts can utilize those to support their sessions when they provide professional development. And then within our Race, but also within our Race to the Top grant, the commitments from our Race to the Top LEAs around standards and assessment was that they had to commit to ensure that not only their principals, but that their teachers were receiving professional development on the standards. And they have to provide reporting measures about the number of teachers that are receiving the professional development and things like when it's going to occur, so that it's not just going to administrators, but that we're also making opportunities available for the teachers as well.
Thank you. Well, I hate this point in a panel discussion, but I have to say that we have to stop. And the good news is there will be some more time for questions, because we have a little refreshment period coming up now, and our panelists are going to hang around and just out here with you guys, and feel free to come up and ask them anything you want. I know I have some more questions I'd love to ask. So please stick around, and thank you very, very much for listening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.